is making sure that the supermarkets have stock, and of course the nurses and the doctors and lots of other people that are just absolute heroes. And so I know that you're as grateful to them as I am. Now, don't worry about the fact they just gone about. And let's say that represents us. Now, one of the reasons we wanted you to put your cameras on is we're going to do this very special thing, and we are actually going to locate you. Oh, this is pretty interesting. We're going to locate you. Now, this is all safe and above board. We're not sort of attacking your phones or anything. In fact, you are in total charge as to whether or not we locate you. So here's what I want you to do. Jump up on the chat and answer these 3 questions. Really quickly, just go for it. Where are you? What's the weather like? And what time is it where you are? Go, right up on the chat. Go, 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 go. This will be very interesting. Let's see where we've got everybody. Oh my goodness, Veronica's cooking dinner. Natalia is in Auckland. Oh my goodness, it's dark. Yes, it is dark, of course, over there. Heather is HJB, as I call her. She's there in Melbourne. It's clear and cold. Perth, Fremantle is 6 o'clock. Yes, that's the same as me in Singapore. Okay, how wonderful to see you, Mark. Great to see you. 6:08. Oh my goodness, I better speed up here. There's a rare one in the UK, and it's sunny and warm. Very, very good. Hi, John. Lots of people coming in from South Africa. Wherever it is you are, I want to thank you so much for being here. It really is cool. Looking after my 2-year-old, yes, that's kind of fun, isn't it? Yes, it is. So here's what we're going to do. One of the things that is possible now, and you're going to see this, is through this technology, it's much easier now for us to connect than it has ever been. And I mean, it was always there, but it took a crisis to a pandemic to let us see that we could actually connect. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get you to connect a little bit more. Now, in a moment, you are going to be, nothing scary about this, you are going to automatically going into what Zoom calls a breakout room. We actually call them breakthrough rooms. And you're going to meet 3 other people from this room. There's going to be, boom, they're going to be there automatically. We're going to give you, I think, 5 minutes or 4 minutes, something like that, in that room. It's not scary. And what we want you to do is we want you, if you would be so kind as to do this, share the best example that you've seen over the past 2 or 3 weeks of humanity in action. What have you seen? That's really cool. And to give you a sense of what that might look like, have a look at this. This is something I got in my inbox yesterday from a dear friend in Melbourne, Bernadette Jiwa. By the way, she has a brilliant blog, which is called The Story of Telling. And have a look at this. She says, sometimes our best ideas come to us when we're working with constraints. We've all seen hundreds of brilliant ideas and initiatives come into being as a result of communities being in isolation around the globe. Local councils are calling at risk elderly in the UK to ask if they need groceries or medicines to them. That would never have happened. Villages have started newsletters, can you believe, to keep communities informed and together. Neighbors are dropping care packages at the doors of vulnerable neighbors. And by the way, for those of you in the US, that's the official way of spelling neighbors with a U. Supermarkets have changed store layouts, not removing toilet rolls or anything, but putting essential items at the front to cut down on shopping time. Legoland is hosting live workshops to inspire kids. And so there's all these wonderful, wonderful things. And I'm sure you have seen many of them as well. So you are about to go in those rooms, courtesy of the team right here. And then we'll bring you back. It'll all be automatic. Make sure your camera's on if you can. Make sure your mic is on. And off you go into the room. And we will see you in a little moment. Off you go. This is going to be fun. Oh, you will need to click Join Breakout Room. Go, 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 go. Join the breakout room. Click that Join the Breakout Room. And off you go.
Wow, how much fun was that? That was awesome.
It was pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
And even in the case where I had Catherine, who was from Tunbridge Wells in the United Kingdom, and she was very surprised that I was actually born in Dover, so I knew where Tunbridge Wells was. So what we might do is we might mute you all up again just for a moment, because there's something I want you to do. First of all, thank you for letting us do that with you, put you in those rooms. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to all jump up on the chat. Just get your fingers ready to go on the chat. And all I want you to do is type in one word, maximum two, but just one. If you can get it in one, that would be fine. And just put in how you felt when you were in that room sharing those stories. What was going on for you? Just pop one word in there as to how you felt. Curious. Connected, says Catherine. Connected. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, Shane's here. Connected. Humbled. Intimate. Wow. In the same boat. That's 4 words, but it's okay. Together. Inspired. Not alone, says Moira. Wow. Very cool. Very cool. Now, here's what I want you to do. I did this yesterday with a group that Heather was in, and it's very interesting to do this. What I want you to do is just do what I'm going to do right now, which is just scroll back up to the chat to the first comment that someone's put in. It's Kay's comment where she says, great, but wasn't long enough. And then have a look at the next one down. Okay, so you're looking at that one called curious. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just not going to talk for like about 15 seconds. And what I want you to do is scroll, don't do it yet, scroll down that chat through all those words and just look at every single word that's written there and take it in. Go, 15 seconds. Now, I don't know about you, thank you for doing that. I don't know about you, but I have got a lump in my throat right now. Right? Hands up if you kind of got that as well. Anybody get a bit of a lump? Yes, yeah, exactly. And here's what I want you to think about. I mean, we absolutely know, because this is the human existence. We are going to get through this, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. We are, but wouldn't it be interesting if we could take all of that connection, that inspiration, from beyond this to there, and we can, just as right now we've changed the mood right here, so we can change it out there. So just remember that as we go through. But thank you so much for going through there with me, and I hope you remember that. So what we need to do, Terry, you're quite right. We promised you why you shouldn't pivot and how you should transform, right? We promised all of that. So let's get back to some stuff. By the way, very good idea, if you would. You're absolutely going to need this right now. If you've got a notepad, that would be really, really cool to get a notepad, if you can get that. And of course, something to take a note on. That would be really good as well, okay? So Terry, you probably can't see that on the screen because I'm not sharing my screen. So let me just share my screen right now. And what I would love you to do with that notepad, I would love you, if you would please, to turn it kind of like, there you go, don't worry about the iPhone. Turn it that way, okay? Turn it horizontally, right? What's that called? Terry, is that called landscape? Is that what that's called? I think it's landscape.
That is, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, Terry, I was going to say you're muted. Someone said to me the other day, "You're muted" is the most often used phrase these days. So, okay, so we've got our notepads, which is really, really cool. Now, one of the things that Terry and this Perth Impact Group is really aware of is that let me put it this way: whenever I do a program, and it's never the same program, because what I try to do is to put myself in where you are. I try to, get where you are, okay? And when I did that a while back, I was thinking not about what we're going to do, but I was thinking about outcomes. And I thought to myself, there are 3 possible outcomes of you being here. And so let me just run through those outcomes. So you could say at the end of this, at some point, you could say, you know what, this is awesome. I need to get some more of this. You could say that, right? You could also say, well, this looks great, but I'm not too sure. I'd like to think about things. You could say that. Or you could say, well, it was really good, but not for me, right? And what we're going to do is we're just going to put a number on those things. So we're going to call it 3, 2, and 1. Now, the reason that's there is because Terry and I are very aware of this fact. The power of any idea is only ever in its implementation. So it's not about turning up, it's about actually doing things through the group here in Perth, or through your local groups as well. So with that in mind, here's where I want you to go. I want you to get your pencil, and now that represents your canvas. And so what we're going to do is show you a couple of things here. You don't have to be a drawing expert. It's really cool. So on the far left of your drawing, what I want you to do is just draw a little square. It doesn't have to be a perfect square. And if you've got colors, you can put colors in there as well. Go ahead. I can remember now, I can see what you're doing because you've got your cameras on. So make sure you are drawing. Come on. So we've got, and across the top of it, would you write, that's it, Rizwan? See, I saw you right there, okay? So now, so just across the top of it, just write the word uncertainty. Why would you write that? Because that's where we are today, okay? Uncertain time. But there is something that we can be certain about, and that is that some future date is going to arrive. We can absolutely be certain about that. So what I want you to do is just draw that line out to, what's today's, as you're watching it, out to the right-hand side, and just put future date. Don't worry about what the date is. It doesn't matter, right? It really doesn't matter. It could be next year, it could be the year after that, doesn't matter. Some future date, and we can be certain that that future date will arrive. The little challenge we have right now is that there's this thing in between uncertainty and certainty, and it's called the pandemic. But we know that it's going to be over. The challenge is that we're not sure when it's going to be over. Right? It's just, it could be here, it could be there, it doesn't matter. But we do know that it's going to be over, and we know that we are going to get to the other side. Now, one of the things that I do is work with a lot of leaders around the world. And what's interesting is I see 3 responses to this situation. And so just take a note of these responses. And the first one, and these are all going to begin with P. So just draw that little red line or that line down there. And this is where panic sets in. It's like, oh my gosh. And there's 2 sorts of responses. You may have seen some of this where people are running around not knowing what to do. But more than likely, they just freeze. It's like, boom, right? And not because they're in isolation or anything else, but because they seriously don't know how to deal with this thing. And we haven't seen it before, so how would they? So that's one group. There's another group, which sadly there are a lot of, and this is, we're going to call them, because we're going to begin it with P, passive. And these are people that just kind of drift, drift. They'll turn up to things, but they just drift. Nothing happens, they just drift, okay? And you may know some people like that. But there's a group, which I suspect most of us are, and we're going to represent them with a blue line, and we're going to call those people purpose-focused leaders. People who understand that there's something bigger than themselves. So make sure you put those labels in there. Purpose. Thanks, Catherine, for diligently doing that with children running around and all that sort of thing. And so let me show you what happens here. So this line is difficult to draw because it's moving, right? But I want you to imagine, here's what we know. We know that these purpose-focused leaders, and I don't mean by that leaders of companies, I mean leaders of themselves and leaders of families, are consistent, or communities, are consistently at their best. It wouldn't matter what you throw at them, they're consistently at their best. And so if you get that's what's going on, then the interesting question is, what is it that puts them at their best? What puts them up there? Now, there's all sorts of things that put people at their best, but there's one that I want to focus on tonight, because I thought about this a couple of weeks ago, and I thought, what is it that makes people at their best? And this is what I came up with. Not asking you to agree with it, but that's what I came up with, that we're all at our best when we're giving. And I don't mean by that giving money. I mean by putting a hand out and helping someone, by helping grandma across the street and making sure that she gets to the other side. We're all at our best when we're giving. Interesting to think about that for a minute. So if we wanted to be consistently at our best, then what would we need to do? Well, we find that the real leaders in this are embedding that action of giving into everything they do, literally everything they do. And when they do that, there's this whole thing about what should we do now if we're serving customers? Well, we should understand, or clients, we should figure out that they've got a different problem. So the word is that we need to pivot to be able to better solve their current problems. And there's a lot of that word going around. You've probably heard it. But here's the reality. When we do that, what you see on your screen right now, we do not just pivot, we transform. And the reason that we transform is that there's this giving spirit, that spirit that you saw in the rooms. It's there. And so you can't help it. It just happens that you transform. Now, interesting enough, the question is, when should you start that? Well, have a look at the difference. If you go to the red line, the bottom of the red line, and go right up to the blue line, that's a big distance, right? So if you wait and wait and wait, it's very difficult to make the shift. On the other hand, if you look at where we are today, and you look at the difference between those lines, it's very, very small. And so maybe you get what a lot of people do. That this now really is our time to rise. Not the person next to our time to rise. And what better way to rise than to have a North Star? I think, as I was saying to Terry earlier on, I think it was Stephen Covey who said, we've got to have that North Star, that thing that we follow. So there's that North Star. Now, some of you who are aware of all the sorts of things that people like Simon Sinek talk about, and another way of thinking about that is it's your why. It's like why you get up every morning. What is it? What is that thing that's bigger than you that you get up every morning to do? And just to show you an example of that, and I work with lots of people on this, but just to show you an example, let me just move one little thing here so I can see it as well. And this guy's name is Marty Harkin, and you can look at him as you go to infiniteedge.com.au. And the other day we were talking about this North Star, and so we helped him figure it out. And you can go to his website. In fact, I'll show you his website in just a minute. And it says, we make complex technology beautifully simple for you so that you can concentrate on what you do best, being human. We give you and your teams, he says. Notice he doesn't say, we want to be the best, software company out there. We give you and your teams the freedom to connect in new ways that bring that sense of humanity to your workplace, your families, your communities, and of course to our world. And if you wanted to see that in action, let me just go there. I'll show you. The day he got that, he put it straight up on his website. There it is. So now when people go to that website, it's kind of like a suck of air. Okay, right, I get it. And that's this thing about connecting to that North Star when you get that why strong enough. So, by the way, just pop in the chat if you would. Just jump on the chat and see whether that, just tell me, because I've only done this once before, just tell me whether that made sense to you. That's a diagram that might be useful to discuss with your colleagues at work or the family or wherever. Just let me know whether you think that's a useful diagram. And let's see what you're saying. Oh, 4 new messages. Oh, perfect. Wow, that's interesting. Yes. Wow, thank you. That's really lovely. And John, thank you for your comment on that. That's great. So that's the foundation for this kind of inaugural meeting, if you like, of the Perth Impact Group. And it's really lovely again to have you here. Now, what's interesting is we've been through these crises before. Not quite this one. Nothing has been like this. And one of them, you can see on the bottom of that graph, was 2008. And in 2008, some of you may remember, we had this thing called the global financial crisis. We thought the world was going to end, but it's nothing like now. Right? And why did that come about? It came about because if you track it, like just before 2008, there was this big money crash and all that kind of stuff. And if you've ever seen films like The Wolf of Wall Street, you would know that right up to 2008, the sort of message that was being preached, if you like, was greed is good, greed is good, greed is good. And so in 2008, we learned that that does not work, doesn't work. And so people were started to say, well, okay, if that doesn't work, what does work? And maybe what works is being meaningful. And maybe what works is being on purpose. Maybe what works is putting team members ahead of profit, and so on and so forth. Maybe that's the way to go. And then, and that's been going on, and it's going on a rapid pace, which is why I think that as we come through it, it's going to accelerate that thing to purpose. But there's another thing that I want to share with you that happened along the way on this, and it happened in 2015. And Terry, I changed my shirt, so I forgot to put my my little badge on, but I've got it right here, but it's the big badge. And some of you may know what 2015 was about. I'm going to find out whether you did in just a moment. But it happened on the 23rd of September 2015, when a whole bunch of people who have been working on this for 3 years decided to get together at that building in Geneva. And I was here in Singapore, and I knew it was going to be live streamed, and I was trying to find it. And finally, at about 10:40 that evening, it came on. And here in the room was Bill Gates, Paul Polman, formerly of Unilever, Ben Ki-moon, who was there, who else? Oh, a whole lot of people. Oh, and I nearly forgot. I nearly forgot. This guy was there. Branson was there. And Branson very rarely speaks. He's usually interviewed, but he spoke this particular day. And he said, you know, I don't spend too much time at the United Nations. In fact, it's the first time I've ever been in their building. And I think what he was trying to say is we sometimes think that, you know, the UN is irrelevant. And there's, you know, I don't want to make any political comments about that, but, you know, you could understand it. But he said today is a really important day because it is the first time, I really want you to listen to this. It is the first time when the world body, you know, has acknowledged something that we as entrepreneurs, we as business owners know to be true. Listen in. He said they've acknowledged that governments do not change our world. I say that again. Governments do not change our world. Certainly they can enable things, but fundamentally it is businesses. You look back, it's businesses that change our world. And so that's when Branson said, because we've spent 3 years now figuring this out, and I'm here to launch these. There you go. He said, let's you and I explore this next great frontier where the boundaries between work and higher purpose are merging into one. We're doing good, really is good for business. And he said, that's when we're going to launching these things, the so-called global goals or sustainable development goals. Now, I speak to audiences right around the world, and it's interesting when you get in front of audiences and you put that up there. In fact, let me make it bigger for you. There you go. These 17 things that we must, literally must achieve by 2030, these goals. Now, please don't feel embarrassed about this if the answer to this is no, because you're in the majority. Just put yes or no in the chat if this is the first time you've heard about the global goals or the SDG, or no if you've heard before, right? So yes, no, no, no. Oh, look, lots of no's. This is one time where we need the no's. Yes, partially, Rizwan, thank you. So using it in all my programs for young people, said Veronica. Awesome. Kids get it. Kids absolutely get it. Okay. So you would know the impact of these things, which is just awesome. Well done. And what we're now seeing is governments around the world are doing very interesting things with these goals. I'll show you one of those governments in just a minute. In fact, let me show you almost now. So what this means is that businesses then, because we have to do these by 2030, we have to. Put a yes in the chat if you have children. Just put a yes in the chat if you have children. So businesses must become the real force for good. Wow, lots of productive people there, right? So businesses must become the real force for good in the world. And here's what I think this is. This is a pathway for business, but actually those of us who are in business, it's a pathway for your business. I also believe it's a pathway for humanity, these global goals. That's why behind me here, you can't see it, but behind me here, I've got a book called Legacy, which talks about how we achieve these. And here's the point. Each and every one of us, that's why Terry calls this Perth Impact Group. Each and every one of us can actually make that a reality in this connected world that we're building. What a fantastic North Star that is, that, you know, by 2030, we'll do all of those wonderful things that the goals talk about. And by the way, let me make it easier for you. I'm not sure whether you've seen this. I'd love to know whether you've seen this. It's the same one at the moment. But the government of Singapore, through their sovereign fund called Temasek, some very bright people there. And they said, you know what, if you look at this thing, it's a bit hard to kind of connect to. There's like all these different numbers and everything else. But what if we just used a very simple principle? What if we just used, let me just move something here. What if we just moved, we just used the ABC? And so they shifted them. See that shift? And then what they said is, well, we can put an A, a B, and a C here. So we've got active economy, beautiful society, and clean earth. So that's just by rearranging the goals, nothing else other than putting numbers in different places. And now it gets really easy, because now, post, here, they said, well, what's this active economy? What that is productive jobs, sustainable cities, and fulfilling lives. That's what that is. What about beautiful society? What is that? Well, that's resilience, that's inclusive communities, and a just society. That's what that is. Just look at those 6 words that you see already. I mean, who among us wouldn't want to have those? Who among us wouldn't want to make sure that that's what our children and grandchildren get? And what about clean earth? What is that about? Well, that's pretty simple. Clean air, clean water, and cool world, which, by the way, as a result of less planes flying, some of that is actually happening. So, and by the way, let me know whether that's the first time you've seen the rearrangement. Yes, it's the first time you've seen that rearrangement. Some of you may have seen it before, but it's kind of an interesting rearrangement, and it really does help us connect. Now, in terms of connecting, sometimes things happen where you have these moments in your life where some people are actually literally ahead of the curve. And I want to introduce you to, thank you, Catherine. I want to introduce you to someone who, in a sense, although she would absolutely deny it because she's way too humble to say this, but someone who was actually ahead of the curve. And she started thinking about this in 2007. And then launched this thing in 2010. Let me just quickly tell you the story. Her name is, well, in fact, let me show you her. Let me show you right up here. There she is. That is Masami Sato. And she was one of the people that I had the privilege, and still have the privilege, of mentoring. And if you've ever been mentored, you know that it is the mentor that asks the questions and the mentee responds. So she comes into this particular day in 2007, she comes into the mentoring session, and it was very clear that she had been someplace else. And I don't mean that in a nice way. It's very clear that she had something going on and was thinking very deeply and had been moved by what she was thinking. And so she began this session by saying, normally you would ask the opening question, but is it okay if I ask you a question? And I said, sure. And the question she asked is this. She said, it's not a question. I just want you to imagine something. She said, I want you to imagine, or what about we do this? Imagine a world where every time business is done. Now remember, this is way before the global goals. Imagine a world where when business, every time business is done, something great happens in the world. Imagine buying, for example, a cup of coffee. Just imagine that. And as you got the cup of coffee, you knew that a kid somewhere was getting access to pure life-saving water. Imagine you went to buy a TV and someone who could not see got the gift of sight. Imagine someone buying a book and trees got planted. And I went, oh my God, that is amazing. And what I actually said to her was, and there you go, I said, Masami, can I be your mentor for the rest of your life? And there you go. That's what she said. What if every time business was done, something great happened in our world? And, just pause for a moment and just think about that. If that happened, imagine a cup of coffee and keep, it'd just be amazing. And then she said, what if we could systemize that and create a movement where businesses could put this right at the heart of what they do? And that's in fact what happened. And it took 3 years to do that, hence that 2010. And I'd love to show you, but we don't have time, a little video that talks about what happened, but it did take a long time to make that happen. But if we fast forward, what that means is that B1G1 members, and there are a fair few of them on this call, Terry is one of them. All of those B1G1 members can now say, every time someone does business with us, something great happens in our world. Just imagine that, right? And by the way, you're in control of what the something great is. So in fact, you could do this, right? This is what businesses do. Think about this. Every time, the business could say, every time we send an email, a child in need gets access to an e-learning program that changes their life. Just think about that. Or you could, if you had a flower shop, when someone buys our roses, I had it in January right there, but we help a farmer run their beekeeping business for an entire month. Or if you're an accountant, when we do a tax return, 18 homeless people get a nutritious meal. And by the way, that costs just 11 cents to do in B1G1. And, or whenever we receive a monthly payment, 42 children get access to pure life-saving water. Just sort of go with the flow on this. And so what's actually happening here is this unique business movement, which says, when this, then this. So for example, what we do is you figure out whatever trigger you want. It could be someone having a birthday, it doesn't matter what it is. I'll tell you something about a child in just a moment. So there are 600 high impact vetted projects you can give, as you can see, from 1 cent, fully 100% goes. We make up the credit card charges and we track everything for you. You can see all of that in just a minute. And everything is linked back in to the SDGs. And so this trigger, I mean, it could be anything, you know, it could be, you can see it up on the screen. And I had someone who joined B1G1 the other day, and she said her children, or her son actually, had difficulty doing the dishes, and he's 10 years old. So she said, how about we do it so that when you do the dishes, something great happens. She's never had a problem for the last 26 days getting the dishes done. So, because the children really get it, okay? So you can see all of those things up there. And it really does define what business giving, redefine, I should say. And you, hopefully the web connection is strong enough so you can see that floating through. You can see the projects there, some of them. You can see that it's just like, someone said, it's just like, you know, doing online shopping. And you can see there's one that's just 1 cent to give child access to learning. Think about that, $3.36 gets a child access to learning for an entire year. And again, you are in total control, as you can see on the right-hand side. And you can actually automate that. You can create what we call giving stories. And a giving story is just making it happen automatically. So imagine you were an accountant. You could do something like this. When we complete a tax return, and then you could link it to something. So in this case, this particular one is in the US, and they wanted to link it to hunger, to homeless. And so they go next, and now they go down, they find the project, food, and all of these projects come up along the bottom. Hopefully you're seeing all of this, and like that, and bang, there's the project right there. There you go, that 11 cent project. You can see the global goals that it hits, and they say, yeah, let's do that. And then, of course, this is all about connection, that kind of connection that we saw right at the beginning of our time together. So they're just selected in there, and they've now got, and they're going to say, instead of doing 1, let's do 18. Again, you're in total control of this. So, so now the question is, what would happen if you were a client of that accounting firm? Well, what would happen is you could get a certificate or something like that that would look like this, or you could send it to your client, and it might look like this. And I'll just blow it up for you. So this comes from the accountant to the client. Just read that. I mean, it's just connecting, right? And look at the bottom line, right? We're especially pleased we can do something great when we do business together. Our simple goal here, just from an accounting firm, is to keep on making great things happen in our world together. Here's the roses one. There's so many of them that we could go through. Oh, this one is a restaurant, which is kind of interesting. They have it just on a business card, and it's a very high impact thing. So what they do is they just give this out when someone pays their bill, and you flip it over and we blow it up for you, and it says, thank you so much for being here. Because it's Tuesday, we've celebrated that by doing this. And you should see what we do on the other days. And you can track that. So it's kind of getting people. So on Wednesday, bang, something else happens. I hope you're getting the idea. Think about the business card idea really quickly. Look at this. This guy called James McGregor in Sydney. And thanks, Moira. And you can see on the bottom right of his business card, think about what happens when we give business card out. It says, please turn it over. And people do. And when they turn it over, you just made something great happen. Simply by accepting this business card, you've helped provide safe drinking water. It really does take your breath away. And you can visit bluetribe.co. In fact, let's you and I just go visit bluetribe.co and see what we see. And this is their site. This is not all of B1G1. This is their site, and it's all linked back to B1G1, and it's happening in real time. We're going to look at their impact tab right here, and you can see there's their why. Then have a look at the left-hand side of the screen. See that? That's the what we call the widget, just keeping track of all of the giving that's going on. And then direct your attention to the map and look at how it's reported. It's not about dollars. It's about the impact that's being created. It should never be about the dollars. It should always be about the impact. And then look at this, just in real time, the impact on the global goals, right? From James McGregor. This is not B1G1 as a whole. B1G1 as a whole right now is up to 206 million giving impacts. Here's the thing, Moira, thank you. Just put in your chat, in the chat box, if you will, if you're excited by what you've seen. Go ahead, because that's amazing. Thank you, Terry. Amazing. Mark, yes. Pop it in there if you're excited. Moira, thank you. Michelle, no. Moira says, how do I get involved? Well, Moira, we will cover that. Thank you for the lead in. Very, very cool. Okay. So let's talk about that. But let's talk about it this way. See, this is a word that is used a lot. You know, we should leave a legacy. We don't have a choice as to whether we're going to leave one. The question is, what does it look like? But I just want you to think about, and we may, Terry, go 5 minutes over here, but if think about another word beginning with L that we could put in front of it. So instead of leaving it, why don't we live it? Again, that gets back to that blue line, right? Being consistently at our best. And why not? Why would we just live it? Why wouldn't we leverage it? Why wouldn't we say to our customers, why wouldn't we say to our friends, look, this is now possible as we get through this, right? And then you put it in action. You do it in your business. You embed it. We talked about the importance of that. You bake it in, and then you share it with your clients, with your family, with your kids, all of that kind of stuff. And talking of kids, I get that this is really personal. You know, it's not just about business, really personal. And I saw this thing, think about kids for a minute. I saw this thing on a newspaper in Singapore on April the 6th and last year. And it said this: we've not inherited the world from our forefathers, we've borrowed it from our children. Think about that. We've not inherited the world from our forefathers. We've borrowed it from our children. And what that means as we walk this path is that in a sense, we become the legacy guardian for them. And so that means that we really have to kind of get our head around implementing this. So with that in mind, you may remember there were 3 options. I get towards the chat because we said this was about outcomes. So, and any outcome is great. So you might say, well, there's the 3, 2, 1. You might say, well, you know what? This looks really good, but it's not for me. In that case, just go ahead, please. No drama, because I'm going to give you something if you would say a 3. So you could say 3. So if you want to say 3, you could say, this looks great, but let me think about it. In that case, you would be a 2. And some of you might say, "Whoa, this is amazing. Let me in on this." And let me just tell you which way I would do. So if you're a 1, put that in the chat as well. Or if you're a 2, go ahead, just pop it in there. And by the way, just pop it in. I just want you to pop it in. There you go. So if you would be a 3, if you said you're a 3, which nobody did, I would smile and say, thank you very much for being here. And I'm so glad we had the opportunity to connect. If you were to say, well, oh, by the way, you need to take a note of this. This looks great, but let me think about it. And that's okay, because you need to talk about it with your friends or whatever. Then take a note of that link right there. I would love you to go there to get what we call the B1G1 Impact Report. And that will give you the additional information to do stuff, right? So you're not just thinking, but you actually got stuff to think about. And if you were 1, then I would reach out and hug you, which of course I can't do in isolation. And by the way, Terry, what I'm going to do is just skip that because of time. But if you were a 1, then I would say, wow, let me show you how you join B1G1, how you belong to this movement, how you get all of that stuff happening for you. And when we started this, we wanted to make sure it was less than a cup of coffee to do it. So there you go. It's just $1 a day to belong to this. $1 a day, that's it. To be a part of this movement of now 3,000 plus businesses right around the world and connect to all of those people. And if you would like to do that, it's up to you. You go. Just take a note of it, the b1g1.com/belong. If you happen to have a camera out, you could take a photograph of that QR code as well. Plus, we'll also send you some little goodies, which is called the impact giving thing, and lots of other goodies. The love will really start. And when you do that, by the way, you get to be a part of something bigger. And then, so that's where that link will take you, and just go down the link. You have a look at the membership. It does depend on your revenues. It's a no-brainer. There you go, says Jerry. And fortunately, in this world that we're in, the larger businesses that are doing, millions of dollars, it's a little more than a cup of coffee. Well, it depends. About Starbucks price, isn't it, to do it? But you just pick wherever you are. So it's $1 a day. And then you just go down, you fill it in, and you can see that you can do it annually or monthly right there. And by the way, you can do that with a money back guarantee. If you don't like it, then we give you the money back as well, which is kind of cool. So the opportunity is there for you to be a part of this group, which is here, which is why it's so cool that you decided to spend your Thursday evening, unless you're in the US, with Terry and her team. Terry, from me, I'm so glad that we had the opportunity to do this. And if anybody has some queries, questions, bang, they can pop them up on the chat. But let's do this. Can we just open everybody's microphone for just a minute? Can we do that? Can we just do that? Everybody's microphone, you can open up. Yeah. Because, there you go, you're all open, right? Terry,
yes.
This is actually for you, or they're all chatting away, which is fantastic. I always used to say that Zoom needed a clap function, but all we need is actually clap. Can we just thank Terry and the guys there for having the wisdom to put this together? Well done, you guys. I'll give them a big cheer. Whoa. Well done, well done. There you go, Terry. I'll hand back to you. So thank you for having me here.
Yeah, I can't thank you enough for coming on and being able to make such a profound difference to everyone. And it's like all that you shared in the beginning. I remember when we connected in earlier today, and you said there's all this new stuff, Terry, that you haven't seen before. And I mean, obviously I've been privy to so many of your presentations, and every time that you present, there's always something amazing and new that you share. And definitely this is it. B1G1, I cannot say enough the difference that we can make through that, through the impact that we can give. It's the number of impacts we can give, but the difference it makes to us as well. And it's an absolute win-win. And for everyone to be very clear on what their purpose is, and, you know, and link it, you know, to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And there is a purpose test that they can do to find that out. Mine is quality education, so it's number 4. And everything that I do in my business and everything I link through B1G1 is through quality education. That's my contribution. So for each and every one of you, it's think about the difference that you can make anyway, but it's so much easier when someone's created a platform that we can utilize that adds massive value. So Paul, is there, you know, there's so many things that business owners can do with this from even a marketing sense, right? So can you just briefly share a little bit of what that looks like?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm blown away by what people do, and they, you know, integrate it into everything they do. And what's really fun, Terry, is that now more and more they're doing it on, you know, on their phones and stuff like that. So, and families are doing it. Like, for example, if I just go to the little app here, I have a thing which is a personal one, not a business one now, but a personal one which talks about what happens. It currently says when we go out as a family for dinner, kids in a nursery school in Ethiopia get meal. My 5 kids get a meal, depending on how much we spend in the thing. But I should change that to say when we get a takeaway delivery. Right? I should change it. But what's interesting is when you do it, right? So I'm just putting 6 impacts in there, and then when you do it, I hope you can see it. I just hit the little impact button right there, and I had the sound turned down. There we go. Just gives me a little hey. So it's like, there are all those sorts of things that are possible. And Terry, the thing that amazes me, I mean, I showed you, you know, the simple thing with the business cards and all of those sorts of things. So the people are doing it in meetings before they leave. They're putting a little card on that says, "Please don't open this until I've gone." And so the person you had the meeting with, I mean, it's a bit challenging to think about that now, but they open it up. And you have said inside that envelope, you know, I just want to say thank you for sharing some time with me. And as a result of that, I just thought you'd love to know that, you know, something great has happened, which might be all of those things. Could be, you know, 5 trees got planted or whatever it was. So it's this thing where we're seeing it more and more in, you know, in the most amazing of circumstances. We're seeing people track their customer journey and you know, linking different giving with the journey. We're seeing that team members having their own little things on websites that they do. They're adopting different global goals. So there's so many things. The one that blew me away recently, though, was the 10-year-old child who's doing dishwashing on account of he got to choose that every time he does the dishwashing, something great happens. So yeah, it's a very cool thing. And your example is a good one too.
Yeah. So wow, I can't believe how quickly that time went. it's so amazing.
I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm spending so much time on certain things. I mean, we're going to be here till 8 o'clock at night Singapore time, but we actually did pretty well. So thank you.
We did very well. It's always a bit of a joke when Paul and I work together and I'm sitting down the back of a room and Paul's presenting. It's like, oh, shall we just let him go over? Because there's always so much more value to give. And you've done it spot on. And you said you'll probably go over, but you've gone spot on. So
no, well, you know, we did get people into breakout rooms or breakthrough rooms and all of that kind of stuff. And by the way, thank you for letting me do that. Thank you for turning on your cameras. That was not easy to do. And, you know, I hope that you talk about this. It would be important in terms of that leveraging the legacy. Just share this, right? And share the good things that go on with the group, Terry. And I know you'll be giving people, you probably, well, I don't know, but I imagine that you'll be giving people some opportunities to be able to share some stuff so that more and more people can be, you know, so that you can be kind of like a central hub, as it were, of all of the good things that are going on, which would be great. And Catherine is walking around Tunbridge Wells now, and we're looking up at Tunbridge Wells buildings right there. Thank you, Catherine.
Yeah, so
Good,
what we
good,
will
good.
be doing, just to end off for everyone, so we can let you go and eat your dinner, eat your breakfast, eat your whatever, to finish your day, whatever it looks like wherever you're from, is we will be sending out the recording to everyone so that you can listen back on this, and also the information that Paul has shared, and also a little bit more obviously about what we're doing. I mean, I run these every 2 weeks, and it's always about how we can contribute to you and showing what we can offer you all. And because, you know, it's like we say, it's not governments that make the difference, it's us as entrepreneurs and business owners, and together we can make this a better world. And I think, if anything, if we look at the opportunities as this is the shake up to make us all believe in our hearts that we can make a profound difference right from what's happening now.
You know what, Terry, I was thinking today, by the way, Moira, I've never heard anyone say awesome sauce all over this session. That's very awesome sauce. And you know, put a number in there which relates to your joy of being here. Like, you know, 1 would be, well, it was a bit iffy, and 10 would be, I got some joy. And whilst you put that in there, Terry, you're absolutely right. I remember in 1990, I came across a book which some of us would know, which was written by Michael Gerber. And it was called the E-Myth. And Michael said, you know, what we've got to do is we've got to work on our business as opposed to in our business, right? And that was Michael's mantra, and still is. Michael's 85 years old now and still a good friend. But here's what's interesting, right? And what's interesting is we all got into the busyness, right? So guess what we didn't do? We didn't work on the businesses, we worked in them. And now, bam, what a perfect time, a really perfect time to actually work on. And what's interesting is, remember we said you don't just pivot, because when you start to apply these things, what happens is you literally transform. So it becomes a different business through the thing than perhaps you ever imagined it being. And we see so many people doing that right now. So hopefully you take that opportunity to do that, not just for business, but also for relationships as well. So yeah. So Terry, thank you for having me here.
Thank you, Paul. And yes, Michelle, you can definitely do that. So I just saw your chat. Okay, everyone, thank you. Let's have everyone unmuted and let's all say farewell, and all a big thank you to Paul.
Bye, Paul.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Thanks, Mike. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Leave there.
Okay. Terry, I'm being cool. I got to go somewhere.
All right.
So, by the way, would you just thanks, John. Would you just give a big hug to your team for making it all possible? We did.
Oh, 100%. They're amazing. I'm very blessed. Thanks, Paul. All right.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody. Bye. Out of the forest.